Welcome to our YouTube channel on Learn with Saim. Introduction. The life of Nelson Mandela. In a world divided by race, hatred, and injustice, one man rose above fear and pain to unite a nation and inspire the world. That man was Nelson Mandela. Born into a country where people were judged by the color of their skin, Mandela chose a different path, a path of courage, struggle, and sacrifice. He was not born a hero. He became one through his unshakable belief in freedom, equality, and human dignity. For standing against apartheid, he was imprisoned for 27 years. But prison did not break his spirit. In fact, it made him stronger. When he finally walked free, he did not return with bitterness or revenge in his heart. Instead, he returned with a message of peace, forgiveness, and unity. He led South Africa out of the darkness of racial oppression into the light of democracy and hope, becoming the country's first black president and a global symbol of justice. Nelson Mandela's life is not just history. It's a reminder that even in the face of extreme hardship, one person can make a difference. His journey teaches us that no matter how long or difficult the fight, freedom is worth it, and forgiveness is powerful. This is the extraordinary story of a man who became a legend, the story of Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela. A life of struggle, sacrifice, and strength. 1. Birth and early life 1918–1939. Full name: Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Birth: July 18, 1918. Place: Mvezo, a small village in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. Clan name: Madaba, a name of respect in Xhosa culture. Mandela was born into the Thembu royal family. His father, Gadla Henry Mafakaniswa, was a local chief and counselor to the king. His mother, Nosekeni, was his third wife. Although born in a rural and traditional environment, Mandela was destined for greatness from the very beginning. At the age of 7, he began formal education, where a teacher gave him the English name, Nelson, a common colonial practice at the time. He was a curious and thoughtful child, deeply respectful of his roots and inspired by African history and leadership. When Mandela was 12, his father passed away, and he was adopted by Chief Jungantaba Dalindaibo, the acting regent of the Thembu people. This transition opened Mandela's eyes to leadership, justice, and political discourse. 2. Education and Political Awakening 1939–1943. Mandela attended Clarkbury Boarding Institute and then Healdtown, a Methodist college. He later enrolled at the University of Fort Hare, the only higher learning institution for black South Africans at the time. He was expelled in 1940 for participating in a student protest. He moved to Johannesburg in 1941 and worked in various law offices while studying through the University of South Africa. He eventually completed his law degree and co-founded South Africa's first black law firm, Mandela & Tambo. It was in Johannesburg that he saw the harsh reality of apartheid, forced removals, racial segregation, and the systematic oppression of black people. 3. Entry into politics in the African National Congress 1944–1952. In 1944, Mandela joined the African National Congress (ANC) and helped found its Youth League, alongside other young leaders like Walter Sisulu and Oliver Tambo. They believed in direct action and mass mobilization, unlike the older ANC leaders. Mandela married Evelyn Mays, a nurse, in 1944. They had 4 children, but their marriage ended in divorce in 1958. In the 1950s, Mandela led the Defiance Campaign, a peaceful protest against apartheid laws. He was arrested multiple times but continued organizing resistance. He also helped draft the Freedom Charter in 1955, calling for equality, land reform, and democracy. 4. Arrests, trials, and going underground 1956–1961. In 1956, Mandela and 155 others were arrested for treason, but after a long trial, they were all acquitted in 1961. Realizing peaceful protest wasn't working, Mandela co-founded the Umkhonto we Sizwe (MK), the armed wing of the ANC, and went underground. He received military training abroad and returned to lead sabotage campaigns against government infrastructure, not targeting people, but aiming to cripple the apartheid system. 5. The Rivonia Trial and Life Imprisonment 1962–1990. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and sentenced to 5 years for leaving the country illegally and inciting workers to strike. While serving this sentence, police found documents linking him to MK's activities. This led to the famous Rivonia Trial, 1963–1964. Facing a possible death sentence, Mandela gave his iconic speech. "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." He was sentenced to life imprisonment. 6. 27 years in prison, 1964-1990. Mandela spent 18 years on Robben Island, where he did hard labor in a lime quarry. He was isolated, censored, and often abused. Yet he remained strong, mentally and emotionally. In prison, Mandela became a symbol of resistance. His calm dignity, intellect, and leadership turned Robben Island into a place of education, discipline, and unity for the ANC prisoners. Later, he was moved to Pollsmoor Prison and then Victor Verster Prison. Throughout this time, his global reputation grew. The international, Free Mandela, campaign gained strength, making him a symbol of the anti-apartheid struggle worldwide. 7. Release and negotiation, 1990-1994. On February 11, 1990, after 27 years in prison, Nelson Mandela was finally released. Millions around the world watched him walk free, holding hands with his then-wife, Winnie Mandela. He immediately called for peace and reconciliation, not revenge. Mandela led negotiations with President F.W. de Klerk to dismantle apartheid. These talks resulted in the unbanning of political parties, the release of political prisoners, and preparations for democratic elections. In 1993, Mandela and de Klerk jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize for their peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy. 8. President of South Africa, 1994-1999. On April 27, 1994, South Africa held its first multiracial democratic elections. Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa on May 10, 1994. As president, Mandela promoted national reconciliation, truth, and healing. He formed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission led by Desmond Tutu to investigate human rights violations during apartheid. He focused on building a new nation, encouraging unity, education, housing, and healthcare. He only served one term, voluntarily stepping down in 1999, setting a powerful example of leadership and democracy. 9. Later life, legacy, and death, 1999-2013. After leaving office, Mandela continued his activism. He founded the Nelson Mandela Foundation, working on peace, education, and health. He married Graca Machel, widow of Mozambican President Samora Machel, in 1998, his third and final marriage. Mandela remained a moral leader on the global stage. Even as his health declined, his words and actions inspired millions. He spoke out against poverty, HIV/AIDS, and injustice wherever it existed. Mandela passed away on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95, surrounded by family. 10. Motivational lessons from Mandela's life. 1. Courage is not the absence of fear. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Mandela was afraid many times, but he acted despite the fear. Courage doesn't mean you aren't scared, it means you don't let fear stop you. 2. Education is the most powerful weapon. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Mandela knew that education was the key to ending ignorance, racism, and inequality. 3. Forgiveness heals. Mandela forgave those who imprisoned him for 27 years. He embraced his enemies and turned them into partners in peace. 4. Change takes time and effort. Mandela's journey lasted decades. He worked, suffered, and sacrificed. But he never gave up. Real change is slow, but it's worth it. 5. One person can make a difference. Mandela's life proves that one person, armed with courage, vision, and love, can change the world. Conclusion. The legacy of Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela's life was not easy. He was born in a time of darkness, lived through the worst of humanity, but rose to lead his nation into the light. From a village boy to a global hero, Mandela's story teaches us that with determination, humility, and love, we can overcome anything. His name is now eternal, not just in books and monuments, but in the hearts of those who dream of a better, fairer world. Nelson Mandela is no longer with us, but his spirit lives in every heart that dares to dream of freedom. His life was a journey of pain, perseverance, and purpose, and he walked that path not just for himself, but for all of us. He showed the world that even after decades of injustice, peace is possible. Even after deep wounds, forgiveness can heal. And even when the world seems broken, hope can rebuild it. Mandela didn't just change a country, he changed minds, hearts, and the course of human history. He taught us that being brave is not the absence of fear, but the courage to rise above it. That true leadership means serving others, and that the greatest strength lies in unity, not division. So, as we remember Nelson Mandela, let us carry his torch forward. Let us stand for truth, walk with compassion, and fight for justice, not just in words, but in action. Because the world doesn't need another Mandela, it needs people who believe in what Mandela stood for. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Nelson Mandela. The life of Nelson Mandela may have ended, but his legacy has just begun.